Right, this is step 2 for your spaceship cut paper project. In step 1, we practiced drawing our spaceship. So in your art book, I had you practice a couple drawings with your spaceship. And we talked about how inside of our spaceship we saw all these different types of shapes that we're familiar with. So if you're looking at a spaceship kind of like this, we see that rectangle and some triangles, circles, half circles, stars. All these shapes are representing parts of our spaceship and its surroundings. Kind of the same idea with this one too. You see all of these, and then there's some zigzag lines, kind of represents the flame that's going through, blasting that spaceship off. So what you're going to do is you're going to pick the drawing, because I had you work on a couple drawings. You're going to pick the drawing that you like the best and that is a good size. We don't want our spaceship to be super teeny tiny. We want it to be about this size right here. It's the main focus of your page, and then you have the surroundings behind it. I'm particularly going to talk about mainly this spaceship for this demonstration. So what we're going to do now, this is a cut paper project. So you are going to use this drawing as a tool. You're going to be looking at it. You're not going to be using it at all. You're just going to have it as a reference. Most artists do lots of drawings before they start their project, their main final project. So this is a tool for you to look at. You're going to try to copy what you've drawn, but instead of drawing on your final, you're going to use paper. You're going to use scissors, and you're going to use your pencil and glue. All right, so those are the things you're going to need. So making the same size as best you can. What you're going to need is that white piece of paper. It kind of has a glossy look to it. I chose this paper because it's thicker than regular construction paper or your art book paper. It has a nice thickness to it. So we're going to use this paper. And then I sent home some tag board, which is even thicker, and you're going to use this for the pieces for your project. And I'm going to demonstrate where to start, how to start, and here we go. This next step is going to take 2 to 3 to maybe even 4 weeks. So I'm making this entire video that's demonstrating what we're going to do. So I'd like you today to watch it and get the idea of how this process works. And then if there's a little bit of time, you can get started, but you'll mainly get started next week. We'll review a little bit and then get started the next time. So when you drew your spaceship, we started with probably your actual spaceship, so that rectangle shape and all the extra shape details. When you're going to cut and draw, cut, and glue your shapes onto here, we're going to start with the background detail first. So things that are behind your spaceship. Your spaceship is actually going to be the last. So if you look at, here's a kind of a final example, and I kind of looked at this as well. You see how if I would have done this piece, if I would have done my spaceship first and saved this piece to glue on, it would have covered my spaceship. So we're going to start behind and then work our way to the front when we're cutting and gluing. So that means your planet, if you have a planet that your spaceship is rocking, taken off from, and any of your background design, so stars and other planets. So today you might get started with your planet if you have something like this. If you don't, if you have more of a spaceship that's like this that doesn't have a landing planet in it, then I'd want you to get started with your background, your suns or planets or stars, whatever you drew in the background. So with your pieces of tag board, they should measure up depending on which size. You know, if you did this way with a drawing, there's some longer pieces of tag board, and if you did this way, there's some shorter ones. So when you look at your drawing, if you have a landing planet, you're going to want to compare and see, well, how far up. And what I like to do is just line it up at the edge right here and make a little mark, being like, well, that's how high up I went when I did this. And if it changes a little bit, you know, throughout your drawing, that's fine too. But we're going to start with drawing first, then cutting, and then gluing. Okay, so as soon as you draw something on the piece of paper, you're going to right away cut it out and then right away glue it. So I see my line. I'm going to kind of guesstimate. I'm going to make that planet. Starting out like that. And again, after you draw it, I'm going to cut it out. And then glue it down. Now this right here, I want you to save it because you might use it for, you know, some littler detail. So save any extra pieces. Okay, so again with gluing, this is going to be kind of the same as what we always glue. If you see any pencil lines, you're going to glue on the side that has the pencil lines. And make sure you glue around the edges, but not too close to the edges. And make sure you're also gluing on top of your table surface, not on top of your white paper. I see a lot of students who do this when they're gluing. They glue right on top of their artwork, and if your glue spills out, then it makes your artwork really messy. We can clean a table, but we can't really clean your artwork that well. And then I like to put like a little X right in the middle. And then I take my one finger and I spread that glue out on the surface. It's really important that you spread this glue because if your paper is not entirely glued down, if you missed an edge, your project's going to look kind of funny. So make sure you really take your time with the gluing part. And remember, any extra glue, just wipe it away. I'm going to flip this over, line it up first, and then hold it down. And it's going to take some time because tag board is so thick. It doesn't really stick down right away, but take some time right here, about 20 seconds, to carefully, without getting glue all over, hold down your piece and really push down. If it still continues to curve, eventually as the glue dries, it will settle and it will stick to your white piece of paper, but it takes a little bit of time. But still spend some time really pushing down right here. If you're interested in adding some craters or whatever design that you want on your planet, I'm going to show you. So picking, you know, your next color for your craters. I'm going to do red. Now this is an oval shape. So when, especially my student who is at home, when you're drawing on top of your tag board, please make sure you really utilize your paper. And so instead of drawing, you know, 4 or 5 ovals on this whole piece of paper, this whole piece of red paper, I'm going to draw them all close to each other so that I have this big chunk of paper that I can save for another part of my project. So you can't see that very well, but I'm going to cut that section off. So now, ooh, I got a nice chunk of red that I can save and use. And then I'm going to have you just go ahead and cut out I would cut out, you know, one piece at a time and then get it glued down right away. if we run out of time for art. So again, just one little tiny line, not much glue. Get it down. And then cut the next one out. If you were in class with me, I normally would have you just draw one thing, cut it out, glue it down, because sometimes if we draw a bunch of ovals or stars and then we run out of time in class, it's hard to store all of those pieces of paper that have your ovals and your stars on them. Just want you to cut it out and glue it down right away, each shape at a time. All right, so again, a little line of glue. So if you have a landing planet, I want you to work on that first. And just to save on some time, I'm going to do one more and keep going. Okay, so in this case too, after you do your crater, then you can add your planets, and if you have other stars, just making sure that if you're drawing your star or your little tiny planets, little stars, you're using the edges. And stars are tricky to cut out, so take your time. And when you cut it out, like I did right here, when you draw it, I'd cut out that little section, so you have that big chunk of yellow paper. And this one's tricky. Take your time if you drew something this tiny. If it doesn't work out, then just draw it again and make it a little bit bigger. It'll be easier. And just remember at all times, whenever you're gluing, make sure you glue on the side that has the pencil marks. I don't want to see your drawing. I want to see more of your cutout. So when I turn this around, you see my little tiny star? I'm always going to glue on top of the pencil mark. And I'm just going to put one star in the background for right now and move on to the spaceship. But I want you to make sure that you have your background ready and your planet ready before you move on to your spaceship. Now, if you have scraps like this, then you can recycle these. We won't save those. We'll just recycle. Too tiny. Okay, so let's talk about the spaceship again. So I'm going to choose this drawing and do my spaceship. So I'm going to start with the pieces, the parts of the ship that are farther behind in the background. So I'm not going to do my spaceship yet. I'm going to do the rocket booster. I think this is what helps get that spaceship through that gravitational pull. For this demonstration, I'm going to save some time and I'm not going to glue. I demonstrated how I wanted you to glue, just around the edges, a little X in the middle, use that finger to spread it around, but just to save on time, I'm just going to draw and cut it out. So I'm going to use this yellow for my rocket booster rectangle, this one in the background right here. You can use whatever colors that you want. I'm going to measure, and I can kind of compare how wide my rocket booster is going to be, and then if I look kind of down, I'll probably go all the way down to where the spaceship ends, the actual ship, so maybe a little less because that's going to get covered up. So after you do that, you can draw, trying to make as straight a line as possible, and then cut it out. Okay, so that's where my rocket booster is going to go. I'll save this piece, it's a good chunk. And then I'm going to do my triangle right here. And again, I'm going to use this yellow rectangle to measure, kind of placing where I want I'll mark it right here. That's how long I want it to be. And then I'm going to find the middle right here. And then go ahead and cut. Again, along the edge, as close as to the edge as you can to save that paper. Then I have my other little rocket boosters. I think this time I'm going to make it a little opposite and use the pink for that. Now, for this, because, sorry, my scissors are in the way. For this, because these two are the same, here's a little trick. So what I'm going to do is, because if I measure it, it's about this thick. I'm going to cut that part off. Maybe save it, because this could be some additional detail. Put that over there. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to fold this whole thing in half. And here's just a trick. If you want something, if you have two things that are the same, like these ends of the rocket boosters and these triangles that are part of your ship. All right. I want two of them the same, so I'm going to fold it over. I'm going to draw a straight line going all the way down, straight as I can. Then I'm going to cut it. I just feel like it feels like I'm cutting through two pieces of tag board, which is a little tough, but you can do it. I'm going to save this. And now I have my rocket boosters, which are a little long compared to my picture. So I'm going to put them back together. Make it a little shorter. Line them up about right there. Save those pieces. Okay, now I'm going to do some triangles. So, kind of the same idea. I'm going to fold this in half. Try to make it nice and even, because I want two triangles again. And I'm going to measure this. I want it to be about the same size. There's my triangles. And again, after you cut, I want you to go ahead and glue it down right away, especially my in-person students. Right now I'm just demonstrating with that. I'm going to save this again too. All right, we're doing it. So now I'm going to save my my little fumes, my flames that are coming out for last, because that's not really getting covered up by anything yet. But I got my rocket booster, and now I'm going to actually work on my rocket ship because it's up front. And so again, measuring the size using your paper. And we'll also look at the width and the length. And then draw as straight as you can that rectangle. And again, this can be any colors you want. I'm going to make an orange rocket ship. And I'm going to come back and measure, use this right here, that triangle for the top. Okay. All right. And then, again, I got my wings, so I'm going to do the same thing that I showed you with the rocket booster. I'm going to fold it in half. Actually, I'm going to fold it this way. It's a little bit bigger this way. And again, look at that size. And draw a line across. And I can look at the size from right here. It's going to be this long. So here, line there. I got to go on this side. There we go. It's kind of like putting together a big giant puzzle. Okay. All right. And then I got the rockets. I'm going to use this because it's about the same size. Cut those in half. Make them a little bit smaller. Excuse me. And then, you know, any finer detail, I got some windows up here, I got the flames. So this is pretty much depending on whatever rocket ship that you made, just getting you the idea of you're starting from behind and you're working your way to the front. I want you to draw a shape, cut it out, glue it down, you know, all at once. Don't do what I'm doing right now where you're cutting everything and then time's up, we got to clean up, and then you have all these loose pieces. Nope, that's not how we're going to do that, but I'm just showing you to save on time to give you an idea of what you're creating. So I'm going to stop right here. Well, I'll go ahead and just show you one set of flames just so that you're like, how do I do the flames? Kind of the same idea because they're identical. I'm going to use this little scrap and I'm going to measure. That's how wide they're going to be, and then you can kind of have fun with those zigzag lines. It's a little tricky when they're this tiny, like the star. Got one more piece right there. And then again, put that on. All right, so again, we're going to be doing this for the next 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks. After you watch this video, if there's time, you can get started on your planet or any of your background stars or planets. And then next week, we'll start the rocket ship or we'll progress from there. All right, let me know if you have any questions.